they a merry bunch. They look so happy. Anyway, the KMS Tirpitz. So, the lonely Queen of the North, the pride of the German Navy, and as affectionately called by Winston Churchill, the Beast. So, just a raise of hands quickly. Who of you, before this evening, had ever heard of the Tirpitz? Can you just show your hands? Good. Who of you has heard of the Bismarck? Awesome. Cool. So I work in Germany. I was asking some colleagues, and I got about the same response. So that was interesting. I can guarantee you, after this evening, you will know about the Tirpitz. So here she is, the famous Tirpitz, so the sister ship of the Bismarck. Yeah, so she was a Bismarck-class battleship, named after Admiral von Tirpitz, so the founder, basically, of the German Navy. Construction started in 1936, and the short clip you just saw is 1939 when she was christened, and she was finished or finally commissioned to the German Navy in 1941. So before she even left the yard, she was already bombed 4 times. Right, so this is just warming up, as you will see later. Now, the Tirpitz was a battleship, so maybe not everybody is familiar with sort of the classes of ships, of naval vessels you have. So the biggest class of naval vessels is a supercarrier. We've all seen those, but up till, let's say, until the Second World War, the biggest class of naval vessel was the battleship, basically a floating artillery platform, even bigger than aircraft carriers at the time. Now, just to give you an idea of how big this ship is, imagine, because we're all thinking about Navy ships now, right? They're pretty big, look super awesome. So imagine you're standing on a football field in a goal, and you start running, and you run all the way to the other side of the field. And then you run another football field all the way to the end. Then you run a third football field to the center line. That's how long the Tirpitz was. Now the beam, so the width of the ship, is basically, imagine you have to do an underwater lane in a swimming pool. So you take a deep breath, you start swimming in a normal swimming pool, you swim across the swimming pool, you touch the wall on the other side, you turn around, you start swimming again until you come halfway across the pool, then you come to the surface. That's how wide she was. Right? So it's just a gigantic ship. The weight or the tonnage, so 42,000 tons. Basically, imagine those Navy vessels you've seen in the harbor. So 8 times as big. You could, let's say, I always like to express this in the number of trucks. So imagine a line of 7,000 empty trucks. So that would be a traffic jam from Amsterdam Central Station to Eindhoven Central Station. That's the sort of dimensions we're talking about. It's just absolutely gigantic. The biggest naval vessel ever built in the European theater. Right, there's only 3 vessels, or only 2 were actually bigger. So the first is the Japanese Yamato-class battleship. It's the biggest battleship ever. This was, let's say, even 10 meters longer than the Bismarck, the Tirpitz. And you have the American Iowa-class battleship. So the famous Missouri is one of those. And this was marginally bigger than Tirpitz. Now, what made her such a beast? So, she had this next to this impressive size. She had 15-inch or 380 millimeter guns, right? And these guns would be able to fire 800 kilo projectiles for 45 kilometers. So imagine you place her at Calais. She could shoot a Toyota Aygo across the channel to Dover. Right? That's the sort of firepower we're talking about, times 8. Right? So, next to this, 100 secondary armaments, 8 torpedo tubes, 4 airplanes on board, just a gigantic threat in the water. Now, the mission of Tirpitz was to intervene in the Arctic convoys. So these were basically supply convoys from England or Iceland to Russia. And the Russians really needed these support. So basically, if these supply lines would collapse, the war effort from the Soviets was pretty much over. Right? So this was crucial. And they moved Tirpitz to the north to interfere with this. And interestingly enough, those big guns, you see, those were never fired at another vessel. Actually, she only fired her guns at anger one time to destroy a weather station on Spitsbergen. Yeah. Also, there was no need for her to use these guns because the fact that just she was there had such a profound influence that basically there's a famous story of convoy PQ-17. So a convoy, 35 merchant navy vessels from Iceland to Russia. She was going there. She had a massive navy escort, and Tirpitz fired up her engines in the Norwegian fjords she was stationed at. And this was noted by some Swedish spies in the mountains. So they told the English, the Tirpitz is coming. Basically, the Royal Navy turned around and fled. Just based on this rumor. The entire convoy was dispersed. Out of 35 vessels, only 11 arrived because the Luftwaffe and basically U-boats took care of everything else. Just the threat of Tirpitz being there caused this massive failure.